solutions cluster, and I would like my...
Hold on one second, I'm sorry. Solutions cluster. And I'm going to start a thread tonight on, so you guys can give me stuff so I can prepare a decent agenda for Sunday's meeting. So anything, I prefer to do, I like to be organized. Solution cluster, Pat. And I'm sorry, what else, Pat?
And then the additional feedback on the constitutional amendment.
You want to do that as a report back?
Discussion.
I don't know how it should be done.
Okay, so we'll do it as a discussion.
Okay.
Announcement / discuss. Constitutional amendment. Oh, I'll do a report back on, well, no, I'm going to hold off till Sunday. I have more info. Scott, did you want to do any report backs? I have you down for the facilitation report back.
Yeah, we could collectively do that.
And anything else you want to get on? No. Okay, beautiful. You guys familiar with the basic hand signals and things like that, you know? Anybody want to, you were here last meeting, right? We were all here last meeting for the most part. Do we really need, yeah, do we really need to rehash? No, last Sunday we had a meeting.
Yeah, we weren't here on Sunday.
Crap.
That's okay.
Read the damn minutes.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know.
Would you mind if we skip that?
Let's just move on.
Okay. Let's go to, anybody want to add anything before I get into report backs? Okay. Scott, you want to start with facilitation on what happened and where we're going?
Well, do you want to do it? I mean, well, you were at the facilitation meeting. I did not go there. I mean, I can say what happened leading up to that.
Yeah, sure.
So we passed we brought the electoral reform document to the GA on Saturday. It was a long and cold meeting. There were like 13 items on There were like 13 items on the agenda. Ours was the second to last, and so we brought it there and handed around the document. And I mean, the facilitation asked me if we wanted to get consensus on the document, and I said yes, we do. And they said, well, that means we have to go through questions and concerns. That's the whole ordeal. I was like, yeah, of course. And then we handed around the document. People read it, and then we went on to questions and concerns, and there weren't any questions or concerns. And then they asked for blocks, and there were no blocks. And then we asked for consensus, and we got consensus. And then 15 minutes into, or like some portion of the way through the next proposal, one guy who was sitting there starts with this kind of, after the fact, he starts objecting to the fact that it was consented, or questioning the fact that we had come to consensus on the document. And then that led to but he was basically interrupting the next proposal, so then he was put on hold. And then after the meeting, after the GA was adjourned, then that led to like a lengthy discussion between a number of us and facilitation and the guy who had the problem with it. And that basically went nowhere, or it went around in circles. And then facilitation said, "We'll come to our meeting tomorrow," which was the Sunday, the next day, because they do a report back on facilitation every day on what happened at the GA, and then Scott listened in on that.
Yeah, I listened in, and it was after our meeting on Sunday, and at the end of the facilitation meeting, the two facilitators did a report back, and what we were told at the end of this discussion, at the end of Saturday night, was that this guy, Tim, was a part of the facilitation working group, and he's the guy that does the Twitter things of the minutes. So he was there. Now, when they reported back on the meeting, there was 13 proposals all that night, like over 30 grand in expenditures. They spent most time talking about this document. they were not specific that this had, during the report back, that this had reached consensus. However, during the resulting discussion, it was pretty much implied that this had reached consensus. Tim expressed his concern that he felt that it was against some of the documents, the principles of solidarity, et cetera, that the GA had already passed. The floor was open for questions. There was a lot of discussion about quorum. There was a lot of discussion about philosophical issues. There was a lot of off-topic discussion. When it finally got back to Tim, Tim basically straight up and said, well, can we ask this group to come back to present the proposal on a different night? We'll give them preferential order. The one concern that was raised to that was by a gentleman and says, I don't know if we, as a working group, have the authority to do that. And I'm concerned that we would be overstepping our bounds by revoking some sort of consensus. That was kind of how it was ended. There was not a vote taken on, or there's not any sort of consensus building based on this, and the meeting was adjourned. After the meeting, the two facilitators from that night and Tim were huddled in a corner over there. I kind of let them talk for several minutes, and then I kind of approached them, and I told them, listen, I'm coming here as an individual, so I'm not speaking for the group. I just wanted to have this chat with you. We started talking about that, and all three of them kind of got all their stories kind of together at that point. And the first thing they said to me, well, will your group, you think that your group will consent to coming back and representing this proposal? I said, I don't think that's going to be, I don't know about that one. But I reiterated the gentleman's concern that was raised at the meeting that if, you know, that if facilitation feels that they have the right to revoke a consensus, no matter how it was made, that they're going down a really slippery slope. And then we started talking about, you know, kind of the spirit of the whole thing, and, you know, we recognized that there wasn't that many people there, and that there were, you know, that Tim, because he was doing the Twitter, really didn't get a chance to look at the concerns and write the concerns down in the document. I understood that. I expressed that I did understand that and respect that his opinion. I did reiterate that I did give him the document at the end and ask him to write down any friendly concerns that he had in the form of friendly amendments, and that we would bring the friendly amendments, you know, to our group. There was a lot of discussion back and forth, theoretical, about quorum, and I was telling them how ironic it was, because we were probably the only group in the GA that was actually working on a document that was talking about quorum. But I said, you can't force us to, we can't be a victim of the faulty process. And I also said, you know, you had 13 proposals that night. We waited very patiently, and we were at the end. You know, where did you come up with the order? We had submitted that proposal on Tuesdays. People had 4 days to read the thing. So if they wanted to come, they had plenty of time, if they had a serious problem. Well, it kind of didn't really go anywhere. And they said, well, how do you want to end it? I said, well, I'll bring it back to the group. I'll bring back this conversation. But we reserve the right to enter mediation on this issue if you feel like you need to push it as far as revoking consensus. As far as we're concerned, the document passed consensus. No matter how many people were there. And I've subsequently found out that the principles of solidarity was actually passed in a very similar manner. It was passed in a very similar manner, and that's still a living document that's on the GA website. So I'm not really sure how they want to play this. I've seen Tim twice since that day, and he's actually come to me and said, listen, I want to work on the document and bring back the changes to you guys. My proposal was that when the document was handed out, there were some things written down. people had made some comments, right?
Yep.
That night. We've gotten some comments online about the document ever since then, some proposed amendments. And if Tim brings back his, my proposition was that we gather all the amendments, discuss them as a group, and then bring those amendments back to the GA and say, hey, listen, this document was consented upon, but it's a living document, and we would like to bring these amendments back to the GA for consent. That was my kind of like, I didn't say that to them, but that's what, that was my proposal to kind of come up with some sort of constructive solution to this instead of having a mediation, a drama with facilitation about what they can do and what they cannot do.
Want to open stack for questions? Yes. Is there, I have three things that I'm just concerned about. Can facilitation overturn something that's been consensus upon? No, they don't have that right. No, because they would need to submit a proposal of some sort. Two is, who would be resubmitting it if that was the case? Would it be political and electoral reform, or would it be facilitation at that point, being that the document was originally from our group? And three is, the other Tim, I think is his name, right?
Yeah.
Did he have an opportunity to block? And if so, did he, or, I mean...
He didn't block then.
He
He did have an opportunity.
Well, he was present when the proposal was being put forth, right?
Yeah.
Quick point of information. I don't remember. I guess it's a point of uninformation.
You were there.
I was there, and I don't remember whether blocks were asked for or not. It seemed to be moving like very quickly.
They were. It went quick. I'm not saying it didn't go quick, but it was clearly articulated.
Okay.
And Tim himself admitted that there were, not this Tim, the other Tim, admitted during the facilitation meeting that there were, that they did call for blocks. He admitted it himself, and it's in, I believe,
It should be in the minutes.
His own Twitter feed confirms a lot of this information, that procedure was followed. His one concern is he was trying to fish around for an excuse. He came up with a number of them, both Saturday night after the meeting and at the Sunday facilitation. What he stood ground on is that there was no time for friendly amendments.
But then the response
But if there are no
to that from
blocks.
facilitation is that if there are no concerns, well, could there be
Yeah,
an
that's
amendment? Why would
actually,
there be?
no, it's that I was trying to get
Yeah.
I don't remember the friendly
And
amendments.
friendly amendments usually are in concurrence with the block, no?
No,
No,
they
friendly
usually are their own
amendments follow
section.
concerns, but the point of friendly amendments is if there are a lot of concerns, then you offer amendments. If there are no concerns, there's no reason to have an amendment.
So there were no concerns.
No one raised any concerns.
No,
I mean,
not verbally.
he wrote in his Twitter feed, taking questions and concerns, which is a point at which, right after tweeting that, he could have said, "I have a concern," but he didn't. What was I just going to say?
How would this be resolved then?
So it's just this is how it stands, and people are working. I don't know. We'll have to see what.
Are you going to be
process
called
is.
to the principal's office or
Something like that, yeah.
All right.
Now we're having a conversation. Point of process. Yeah. So there's other two questions we don't have the answers for, but those are good questions.
Anybody else on stock? Anybody want to be on stock?
Am I taking stack?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're small.
Good.
You were first.
We have progressive style, traditional. So please.
Okay. Well, are we in? Is this a report back? My question is there a report back, or are we also going to be making a decision on how to proceed?
This is just a report back. We're not making a decision on this. I don't think, are we? No, this is just a report back.
The
Yeah.
decision would be to wait and see what he brings back, and if they're substantial and we think we want to take them up, then do something about it.
We could revisit it.
So Patrick just said what I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
that's what I said. The only thing I wanted to add is it still would have passed a modified consensus even if he had blocked, because everyone else that was there did not want to hear this thing go through the whole process again. So, and there weren't a lot of people. There were more than 10 people.
Yeah.
There were more than 10.
More than 10. So I'm saying 9/10 still. That's
That was around
Yeah, it was way more than
20-ish.
that. It was still
Yeah.
20-ish.
That's really.
One thing I wanted to add is that it went so quickly because I shouted and went without the human mic. So it literally went twice as quickly as
Right.
anything else would normally go.
Sure.
But
Next, anybody else want to add anything, or can we move on? Tim, you want to do Monday's events?
yeah, so there were two events that I was invited to, actually that all of us were invited to on Monday. One was at the 92nd Street Y in the afternoon, and the other one was at Riverside Church in the evening. Scott came with me to Riverside Church. That was with a meeting of the Social Justice Commission there, which they have. It was like their regular monthly meeting. So I'll start, I guess, with the first one first. It was at the 92nd Street Y. We were invited there. An open invitation was extended to our group by Lenore, who was at our last meeting, if you remember. It was a panel. On the panel there it was a panel discussion at the Y, so as Lenore put it, it was the 60-plus crowd, so a lot of senior citizens in attendance. And they were expecting like 20, 25 people, and like over 110 people showed up. There were 5 panelists, including me. There was a guy from Think Tank, a guy from, I want to say, I don't know if he was involved with a working group, but he was basically a teacher and talked about like education, student loan kind of stuff. There was a woman from Occupy the SEC. Then there was a lawyer, I think, with like a hospital union. I want to say the SEIU, but I don't know if that's true. And me. People talked about basically the format was everyone gave like a 2 to 5 minute introduction of themselves and who they are, what they're doing at OWS, and then like it was just open to kind of pre-written questions from the floor. So I, when I gave my presentation, I talked about the working group and the point of the working group, and made plugs for the various subgroups and the work they were doing. Talked about what topics came up. The Stock Act came up. The inner working. It was kind of just a lot of this stuff was very basic because they just wanted to learn more about Occupy Wall Street. In follow-up, it seems that Lenore said she did like a poll afterwards, and people seem to be very interested in the Stock Act thing. Just for anyone who doesn't remember, the Stock Act. Right now, the law is that the law does not apply to members of Congress, insider trading laws to be precise. Like there's a double standard there. They can engage in insider trading with impunity. So things like the Stock Act are aimed at rectifying that problem. If you remember last weekend, there was also the guy Chris, who actually we met the night before at the GA. Who wanted to work specifically on the Stock Act, so I've since, via email, put Chris and Lenore in contact with one another because, senior citizens have a lot of political clout. If a large group of New York senior citizens got behind something, we might see action on that very quickly. I also put her in contact with Anne because Anne's working on that proposal to get support from the City Council for a resolution to resolutions similar to LA to abolish corporate personhood kind of thing. That was that. Second one was a meeting of the Social Justice Commission at the Riverside Church. Scott and I were there, and then there were 3 people from Direct Action and 1 person from Interoccupation Communications. Hassab, Amin, Josh, and Sandy. We basically went. It started off with introductions and talked about basics about Occupy Wall Street, and then fielded questions. If you want to add anything to that?
Oh, you want to kiss her goodnight, huh?
I was thinking about it.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was good. It was interesting. It was it was really cool to be to be at the Social Justice Commission, to be with the Social Justice Commission at Riverside Church, and they were very interested in finding out, and this came up at the 92nd Street Y too, which was like, what can we do for you? How can we help you? What can we do, right? So, I mean, really, the obvious answer to that question is like, well, I don't know. Form a group called Occupy the Y. I don't know. Occupy the church. Actually, it's funny. The guy who's the social justice, the head of the social justice mission at Riverside Church, he's like a founding member of Occupy Faith NYC. So like the group of like clergy and ministers and whatnot.
Right.
They're very involved with that already. They actually that's the group, the social justice mission. They're the ones who donated the 100+ tents that were destroyed in the raid as well. So looks like that may happen again in future meetings of the social justice mission, that people might be invited back, so there might be kind of a standing invitation there.
Yeah, they were exploring maybe even opening it up to the congregation.
Yeah.
Opening up the discussion to the congregation itself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody want to grill Tim or Scott on this? Next, Stefan. Unity Hall racism.
Right, I'll be brief. I mean, don't be a racist. Yeah. So last night they had a meeting. There was a training on race. So important. I think it was important.
Who did?
I don't know who hosted, but they had 2 speakers from some university. I think maybe Columbia. I'm not sure. That's what I heard. What was I going to say? So a lot of things were said, obviously. So I'm just going to briefly say what I got from it, right? So talking about race, for example, right? Important. It's not to be considered as being racist. So it's okay to talk about race, right? So don't think that if you say, black people are not included within our is somehow racist or should be interpreted as being racist. It's fine to talk about that. All right, that's one thing. Another thing, right? So anyone can say racist things, right? White people can say racist. Black people say something racist about white people, right? However, we have to realize that there is a history of race against a specific group of people, right? Especially black people in our country. And we have to be sensitive about that. We have to realize that their society, the culture that the society that they live in, right, it is different. Or at least it's changing, of course, over time, but there is history behind it. So we have to always be aware of that. Not just black people, but other minority groups that have been marginalized or oppressed. Right. And what was the other thing? Oh, and so they had this interesting idea of they had this graph, this circle graph, and they talked about how people in the center, which are a small group, usually are the ones who have access to, for example, politics. Politicians have access to money, and these people within the smaller circle. So society is, what does the circle mean? So society is divided like in these circles, concentric circles. So within the center of these circles is a small group of people who usually have wealth and have access. Because of that, they have access and they feel privileged, or they feel like they are more empowered to actually create change within the larger society. So this model, one of the speakers mentioned that this can also be applied here, where right now these are the small circles forming because we're acting, because we're coming up with documents. We feel like we're empowered to change the world, at least change America, right? But in doing so, in trying to push our agenda, we have to bring other people in from outside circles. However, we don't communicate with them while formulating our agenda. So before fixing our agenda, before creating a fixed agenda, we need to bring these people in and create an agenda with them. Because it's usually not inclusive. It's usually we need your support. Join us. So we need first to outreach and then develop an agenda. So we should really work on outreach, not just agenda right now. I mean, it's more important than anything that we create some kind of outreach to bring people in and then create an agenda that's inclusive of everyone. So that's the main ideas that I took away from it.
Cool.
Any clarifying questions? course, you always have questions.
No, then what I would suggest is, I didn't get a chance to make it over on Sunday, but kind of bringing all the working groups together with that. You want to share anything, you please, if you don't mind?
It's sure we could. I'll
do a quick report back.
I'll tack this quick report back on what we're billing as the solutions cluster is meeting from all of us movement groups, demands, vision and goals, political electoral reform, think tank, and just like a whole long list. And we're trying to make it longer.
Make it what?
Longer. You know, the thought was, hey, we don't have, maybe everybody. These were who we had. Political and electoral reform is there. Political action, demands, houseless, vision and goals, LGBT, environmental solidarity, call to action, immigrant justice.
We understand.
Sustainability. Sorry, I'm boring. And which really opens a question. So they're going to keep meeting. It's 5 to 6:30 on Sundays.
Here?
Here. And I recommend that as many of us attend. Because I think it's a good idea as we tackle the heavier issues that we sort of really work together. Especially as you can see how finicky the GA is to get some of these really heavy lifts through that say, okay, we're not going to call it a demand, but we are not leaving until this is redressed. We should be working together as much as possible across the whole. So that's the thought behind that cluster. And it sort of goes to the point you're raising about how we need to be inviting people into the center before setting the agenda. Some of us, myself included, might find that process. I mean, I agree with it. I do. I think that's the right thing to do. But it's like, so it may take you the rest of your natural life to get to the point where you can set the agenda because we didn't have everybody in the circle. Was there any discussion about that?
Right. It doesn't say get everyone. It says it's important to have at least a
Sampling.
right. So the body should represent this small body should represent the body of America. So this body, I don't feel represents America. That's my bit. So until we have that, I don't think we could actually generate an agenda that speak for the 99%.
Sure.
So.
Well, there's also there's a tension there, or
There's
I don't
what?
know, point. I guess a clarifying point. There's a tension there, it would seem, between the idea of direct democracy and the fact that this is somehow representative, right? The point of this is that we are not engaging in representative politics. We're engaging in direct politics, right? But the point is that we're speaking for ourselves, not for anyone else. I don't know. I think there's a tension, at least it seems to me.
So the agendas that we come up here, we want them to be widespread, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't bring people then we will never get support.
But
we need support from the 99%.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, though, Stefan, I mean, it's not like we're hidden, It's on the GA. We're holding our meetings in an open space. And I can understand, I agree with you 100%. It would be nice to see me not being the token brown guy here. But at the same time, what if you don't want to get involved? It's there. How many times we put documents out there for people to comment on, and it's like nothing happens. It's not like anything is hidden. It's there. You go to the GA, same thing. Everything is wide open. So, I mean, I don't know how much. Maybe we can post on other groups' pages to let them know what we're working on. But I think that's part of what these intergroup meetings are all about.
That's a great place to do it. Great in-person place, anyway. Posting on other people's pieces.
Yeah, but he's not talking about reflecting a diversity of the working groups at Occupy Wall Street.
No, we're talking about color.
Talking about reaching out beyond Occupy Wall Street.
That's what I'm talking
Beyond the
about.
Occupy movement, which is not necessarily what's...
But again, NYCGA is open for
But
anyone.
people don't know to look there, is my point. Like, outreach is about not just putting it there and saying they need to find, we're not hiding. It's not about hiding or being visible. It's about actively going out and saying, here this is. How do you feel about this, about what we're doing? I mean, it's more active, whereas what you're describing is more passive.
So there was pretty much, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So they use the political analogy, and they equated that. They equated that with our system. So in politics, they usually create agendas that don't really benefit masses, right? But then, in order for them to pass their agendas, they need to get the support. They need to get voted into office. So then they go on these, knock on your neighbor's door and to vote for whoever. So they spread out as soon as after they build their agenda, and they say this will benefit you, not really. So this led us to problems that we have right now in our society, right? So if we're recreating a situation that exists already, we're not going to improve society. We're just going to create a duplicate. That's what that was there. So I don't know how to do this, how to reach out, but
One thing.
Go ahead, you were first.
I've been speaking a lot, I feel like.
Maybe the Y and or Riverside Church are two good opportunities to do this.
Actually,
And maybe bringing a voting experiment to them.
What's the demographic of Riverside Church? I mean, is it minority?
It's
I
mixed.
don't know, it's
mixed.
very
Pretty
diverse.
mixed.
It's very diverse. I would assume it's in Harlem.
Right. Oh, okay. Right.
It's a diverse church.
I want it to be a place to draw. I'm just saying.
Actually, it's one thing I forgot to mention in my report back is that he might actually be putting a copy of the electoral reform document as an insert in the church at like the Sunday, like in the Sunday pamphlets or something. So that's a lot of outreach right there. But what I wanted to say was that early on at OWS, the outreach group, one of the things, whenever they did a report back, one of the things they brought up was that raise your hand if you're in the outreach group, and then some smattering of people would raise their hands and they would say false. Everyone is outreach, right? This is the point. Like, no matter what you're doing, anyone in this group can be doing outreach when you're talking to anyone. Right? So we don't necessarily need, but that's something we can talk about in the future, but the idea that everyone is outreach is that whenever you're having a conversation, that's an opportunity for outreach if you're speaking with someone who's not aware of what we're up to or what's going on, or even about Occupy Wall Street in general.
A similar comment. I think the Riverside Church example is a good one, not to make more work
Politics and electoral
than
reform.
people are already taking on, and I'm new to this, but I guess as the group, as opportunities present themselves, if we all keep in mind, like, who is this? That's if there were two groups that approached, and one's like pretty representative of the demographic here, and one was another demographic, maybe like, oh, that might be where we want to focus a little more effort. And we're not gonna. It's not realistic to say like let's go out and contact all the low income and people of color communities out there. That's more of a task than we can take on. But I think if we keep it in mind and like you're saying that Tim, that if we think that we all do outreach too, I think that's the way that we can make incremental improvements.
Damn, if we could get them to join, we'd have like 50% Asian in our group. Sorry. I'm Asian too, just so you know. No, but I mean, I try to invite whoever I can to come to our meetings, but there's only so much, you can't hit people over the head and say,
Yep.
Hey, well, so I mean, I think also as we get more documents out there and a little more exposure to for the group and the things we're working on, I think that might draw people in. I don't know. Next. Anybody else wanna? Sure, why not?
I just want to share something with you all that I think is really important. There is a document that has been made into a petition that comes from the Million Occupier March, a Million Occupiers March, and the document is called Common Sense. The new Common Sense really makes sense, but the really makes sense is sort of dropped from it. And it's been put on the White House website, but it isn't searchable there yet. So the only way that I know of to go from scratch is to go to the Occupy Wall Street, New York CGA General Assembly site, and go to the Million Occupiers March site and scroll down through about 3 or 4 pages of stuff until you come to a thread lead that's called "The New Common Sense Really Makes Sense." And it is a document that the first few paragraphs of it had me in tears. It is so beautiful. It takes you linguistically from the Declaration of Independence and the beginning of the Constitution all the way into common vernacular vocabulary now for stating what's gone wrong, how it's gone wrong following that, and how we can correct it. And it's asking for an inventory and an audit of the implementation in government of the Constitution in order to put the Constitution centrally back as a democratic republic. And I think that this document is such an important thing that has come out of Occupy Wall Street, although I know that the people who wrote it are not putting their names on it. I don't know who they are. They don't want to, sell it or whatever. They want to give it to...
What was the name of the thread? Million...
The group is called Million Occupiers March. The thread is called "The New Common Sense Really Makes Sense." And when you go to their link to the document, it is the website of the White House. And their link will take you directly to the document, even though it's been up, evidently it's been up, it says, since November 26th. And last night, I was the 18th signer, so this is a well-kept secret that I really think has to go far and wide. So people, please read it and go into your email, and people that you have the most peripheral contact with, that are involved in groups that you have very little contact with, make sure you disseminate it to all of the varieties of people that you know and groups that they might be involved in, because this is the only way that I can see anyway, and I'm sure there are going to be many, many, many goals that fall out in the future, but this is a very immediate and needed first step in reclaiming our country for 100% of us, not 99%, not 99.99%, but all of us. And yeah, I'm done. I just think it's such a beautiful thing. I want it shared.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's in the facilitation handbook.
Yeah, I don't either.
Anything else? That's it?
I'll take hugs any day.
To add to that, I think there's a Constitution working group. Is anyone familiar with the Constitution?
There is a constitutional working group, but they're not.
Were you here last week?
I'm in her group. She's not in mine. I'm in Shoshana's group.
Okay.
No way.
Because I heard that they had written up petitions or something.
They
I
have.
think they even wanted to be at this meeting, but they're
we're
not
not
here.
doing a petition.
They have a collection of 7 petitions it's aimed along the similar track anyway. Some of it is more controversial than others. Like they're looking at the Fed and saying the Fed is not constitutional. It's not clear whether they want like gold-backed currency back or whatever. But it's very in-depth, and obviously they've been working on it a long, long time before Occupy Wall Street started. But that is not this. This is something else, rather simple.
Thank you. Okay.
Good?
Good.
Next. People before parties?
Yeah, so last Thursday we talked about whether we wanted to add some graphic design to some of our work here.
I'm so excited about this.
And
Fun part.
a first step would be the people before parties document. So I just took a real rough stab at this. There's two versions of it, so we'll hold on to both copies.
Sorry.
I think this is. I hope this is the right. I'm sure that, I don't know. It sounds like maybe the text may change based on.
Yeah, it's going to change.
You want one?
Please.
You got?
Yeah, I think we have that.
Yeah, it's two different versions.
Okay.
So one is, just to get feedback from you. Is this useful? Is this what you're thinking?
I'm sorry. I apologize. Before you just go any
Sure.
further, I'm going to do a count. Everybody wants to be counted for quorum.
Just raise one hand.
You understand what we're doing?
Let's just make sure that we're all here. That if we decide anything about this, then
doesn't
I
matter.
see.
it's like legitimate.
No, just so we. It's 8. Right?
9.
Okay.
9.
Hi, Mr. Sean.
Oh, you should have. Okay. Sorry.
Shut up.
Sorry. I didn't mean to point it out. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so one is just any suggestions you may have. Do you want it more visual? Is it not the right style? Do you want it more formal looking? Just whatever feedback you have visually. And then the other is there's two versions here. So in one case, the kind of the intro text is on one page, and all of the different areas of experimentation are listed in 2 columns. And in order to make the columns fit, I actually moved up the primary election reform. It was like maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs down, and I moved that up just so it fits. And the other version, it's pretty much just as it was in the original Word document in order. So if you have a preference between the two, that would also be helpful.
Which one do you like? That one? Yeah, I like this one.
How about the fonts? Would it be
We can do anything.
something? Do you, just throwing it out there, like kind of like script, kind of maybe?
Yeah, I wasn't
Maybe.
sure if you guys, want a more modern-looking font, like the web and all that. It tends to be like the sans serif.
So we're gonna open Stack, or we're just gonna
Sure.
talk
And
over each
then-
other.
Okay.
We just talk over each other.
Well, we've been pretty civil. If we can want to continue rather than.
One to me, it's not going to go well. I think Sammy wants to see more of a Declaration of Independence kind of font. Like with the F's that are like this.
Yeah, this is going to be visual design is going to be hard to do in a consensus approach, but okay.
Taking a quick turn on Stack, I think this is
my
terrific.
God.
I think it's really beautiful.
How are
I
ya?
think I have nothing but nice things to say
I'm excited.
about
I mean,
this.
I'm jumping Stack.
I like actually up here. I like the spacing of this better,
Okay.
but I understand that it's tied into the whole spacing of the
Yeah.
document, so I'm not arguing with that. But the one thing that this doesn't accomplish well, I feel you could get to the bottom here and not necessarily
Right.
understand that there's more on the back.
Right.
Whereas this one, you're like, oh, is that all there is? And then you're going to find the details. So I think this works better for me, just the way I would read it, the way I would access it.
Which one is that?
This is the one that doesn't have bullets on the
Okay.
front, that has them all on the back.
Yeah, I like that one.
So we have Stack, or you gonna jump Stack?
No, I was just saying.
Other,
We can,
I really like this. I like this one.
Okay.
Yeah, the 2 columns. I mean, I used to edit textbooks, and my concern when working with graphic design is always readability. And I know maybe a fancier font might look nicer, but I think this is very readable, presentable. So yeah, that's
The bigger font.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
that's what I'm looking for. I really like this one.
Yeah, I like the 2 column. I like the 2 column as well. One thing though is that this document's probably going to expand. It's probably going to get longer. So I don't know. That's going to make things more difficult, right? So I mean, like the list of suggestions will probably expand at some point. So maybe at some point they won't fit anymore.
so it's my understanding that the reason we format them like this is so we could have a spread them out and people get to actually say, wow, this is really nice, let me read it.
Yeah.
So to gain support for this, not
Yeah.
to, in the event that it does change, then we would reformat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well-
I just want to keep that in mind.
What I would say is, even if we did add, I mean, if you went to a third page, it would make it easier with this present format to just flip and then just go to a third page. So the format in its present form would be, I think, very acceptable. It would be very easy to add, I think, at that point. Go
So,
ahead.
but should we have a different format for each different document, or should we like have a template? I think we should have a template, right? So
Very
people
I-
can see it and say, oh, this is coming from so and so, right? So I think I like this one, but I think that the symmetry I also like. I mean, I like symmetry, so I like this one. But I also think we can use this as a template for other documents as well.
How often will it change? Like, so,
Not very.
so I mean, I like the 2-column one better as well. The 1-column one is a lot easier to just add on because you don't have to like
Right.
adjust the columns every time. You know, the new line. If it's not going to change that often, we can go with the one that it seems like
Yeah.
most people like the 2-column. We can go with that. And then,
For right now, I think until it's reproposed to the GA, the document stays pretty much the same, right? And it's not even, I mean, it is a living document. Does anyone actually ever read it? Well, that's debated
Question
or
is,
debatable.
Is it a person?
No, but the point is, be quiet. You're nobody important, aren't you?
Yeah. Formally.
Sorry, Scott. I'm sorry. But so I think, I mean, at this point, unless it goes before the GA or one of us, it really is going to stay like that for a while, for the foreseeable future, I think.
But which is the starting one?
It's the same thing. It's just two different formats.
Well, I see that, but what I meant was one originally done and another one is being considered in relation to it and what the pros and cons
We're going to get to
are?
that after we go over that.
Okay.
Somebody's contesting it. We'll get to that. We discussed it already.
One thing I would say is that the my question is like, how would this look in a black and white as a black and white photocopy of this?
I think it'll work okay.
I mean, it'd
yeah.
work, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Because
That looks
obviously
nice.
black and
Yeah,
white is
yeah,
just
we're
is
not gonna be able to
cheaper.
print
So
that,
like,
right.
if we're going to be paying for copies, we probably wouldn't want to have to pay more for color copies. So just keep that in mind, I guess.
So if it's internal distribution, yeah, but again, we're formatting it in order to present it to people, right? So we're presenting it in order to gain acceptance, right? Wide acceptance. So I mean, are we gonna go cheap? Are we gonna go like really cheap, maybe like almost see through? And I mean, so I think color. I think we should not really worry about black and white. We should worry about how it'll appear to others and the willingness of other people to actually read it.
Sure.
I mean,
And online, obviously, it could be.
Yeah.
right.
I'm wondering about, is this ultimately the form in which we want to disseminate this? In written form, do we want to hand out 8.5 by 11 sheets, or are we interested in having something that's more of a booklet, or that's a trifold? Is this the format that we want to distribute this in? And I'm not proposing an answer, I just bring it up as a question. I like this very much.
Go ahead. Please. No, my only going along that line is if we do expand it, do we want to think about that now or address that later on? And if we're going to add other documents to it, again, or whatever, how do we want to address that? Is it going to be in a booklet form or whatever?
How do you feel about multiple documents? So for a teaching, for like documents that address the setting. So for a teaching, it's okay to have documents on the table like this. But if you were to hand it out, maybe a trifold or bifold.
Good. I mean, I don't know how many you're expecting. Like, if you're going to be doing, like, printing out, like, hundreds of these at a time, and then you're all going to be sitting around a table, like, folding them into thirds, like, that is extra work. Maybe it's worth it, maybe not. I mean, this is pretty easy. You can just go to copy, and it'll just automatically type in 200 and it'll spit out, so.
I mean, we could experiment, right?
Yeah.
See what. It's up to you. I mean,
we
it's
can,
your
we can
work.
start with this, and then, if it changes, then, we'll get different text and we can play around with that. I have a placeholder for an icon. For now, the group doesn't have an icon. I could just stick the fist in there for now. And then maybe for our next agenda item is what are other visuals that we want, and then we could start to prioritize that. And maybe other things will come out before, the redesign of this stuff.
We have there's a little logo. I never know how these things got on there on the nycga.net website. It's a red United States, I think, and it's purple. Sorry, and it's not terrible.
Blue and red.
How about an elephant humping a donkey?
So you're not allowed to
We're
speak
like donkeys.
This way we cover both.
We're a donkey and elephant screwing the rest of us.
I would take a dump on it.
Sorry. Throw it out there, see what happens.
I could continue with this, but I'm not going
Stop
to.
it.
I'm stopping it right here. There's an idea in my head. I can spit it out. I'm not going to do it.
But do we want like just letters that are positioned differently, or do we want like a symbol that represents?
So are we moving on to the next agenda topic, just to clarify?
How do you guys feel about this as is? Do we have some kind of agreement that she should proceed, or
Yeah,
you want
so
to
like
take
what I'm hearing is people like the 2-column one, stay with the fonts for most part. I'm sorry, and then maybe for the icon, I'll just stick in the fist for now, since that's what Occupy Wall Street uses, and then we'll wait until another room.
Sure, unless there's something more obvious that occurs along the way. And speaking personally, I would say you have a great deal of talent. Obviously, if you think of an alternate icon that would make more sense for us, please bring it to us and show it. We'd really like to see more of your work.
I'm just wondering, what is the icon representing? Specifically, is it representing this working group? Is it representing? Okay.
Presumably.
Or is it representing
Or even
I
the
guess these
Occupy
are
movement
pretty
as a
much
whole?
The working group,
Because
no?
Yeah,
like
I
a
think
stamp.
so. I don't think we've discussed this at any point because
That's a good question.
and
So that's the next agenda item, right? Is what are other visuals that would be useful to this group? Like, do we want a group logo? Are there certain, I think last time you were saying like, oh, some of the key messages are, people are not corporations. Money is not speech. And like, if there's, maybe like 3 simple messages that you want everybody to know about this group or about this cause, what would they be? And then can we turn those into icons in a way that's visual? Because so much of what this group does is really complex. So we just boiled it down to like 3 key points. What are they, and can we draw them?
campaign finance is definitely one of the issues. How do we want to word that? I don't think you need to change that. This is something that from day one that we started meeting has been the kind of the core, because that's pretty much it affects every aspect of Occupy Wall Street while we're here. So that's definitely.
I saw a great photo today. Just this kid with the dollar bill over his mouth.
Can you repeat that?
It was a kid. It was just a person with a dollar bill over his mouth.
Diamonds buy money.
May I? I think
give you the eye.
I think that is your name Rena? R-I-N-A. I think Rena brings up an interesting point. What should this be? Since this has technically been consensed by the GA, I think the fist is more appropriate. This actually is Occupy Wall Street statement. Maybe we want to take it back, whatever, but putting the controversy of that aside, if we do get things through the GA, I think it should be Occupy Wall Street. Things we're doing internally that we're talking about it more, it could be the donkey and the elephant.
How about like, donkey, sorry, I was going to say, like, you know, where I've had in mind, like, an idea for a political cartoon for a really long time, playing on the donkey and elephant and, like, the political zoo. Like, one is, like, parent with a child, and they're at the zoo, and it's just a donkey. They're at the political zoo, and it's just a donkey and an elephant. The kids looking up at the parent saying, "Where are all the other animals?" Or another one would be like, you know, all of the other animals are in cages, but the donkey and the elephant are like running the zoo, or something like this. I don't. These are donkey and elephant ideas that are running around in my head. I don't know how easy it would be to boil that down to a like 1-inch diameter circle.
See, I wasn't
circular
far
logo.
from.
I have an idea. I mean, that was a bird, right? Yeah. What about like the donkey and the elephant eating from a bowl that says Wall Street on it, and they're trampling on the 99% while they're eating from the bowl? That's not going to fit.
Yeah, no, it's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon.
Wait, don't forget the fat cat either.
Wow, so why can't it be a cartoon?
With birds flying by.
Yeah.
It's too much.
So what are things that you guys would find useful? Like, would a logo for this group be useful? Is it mostly about, you know, fixing the layout of documents that we have? Is it about having these certain icon messages for signs? Like, how can visual stuff be useful?
Going
most
back
useful
to,
this group?
I don't think we kind of agreed, and I don't know if it's necessary for us to agree, but do we want to have a format like this for all of the documents coming forth from our group?
Template, right.
Yeah. Is that consensus or agreed upon
I would
for
like
right
that.
now?
I would like that.
Anybody? Sure. Yeah, you're here. You're part of the meeting. What do you think? Say it, please. Please, no. Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna block or something.
I mean, a template would be good because then, I mean, if you created the template, then you could pass the template around, and then people could do it themselves as well. So that would be good for a template.
Yeah, this was done in Adobe InDesign, but it could easily be done in PowerPoint, and then like.
But I was going to say that like different subgroups may have different needs. So I don't know. It might be,
what I was getting at was, is this recognizable from our group from here on forward?
Well, what I'm saying is, but different subgroups may have different things that they need materials for. Like, for instance, I mean, because we were talking earlier about outreach, right?
Just for tonight.
I mean, just one general, small, like maybe quarter-page flyer kind of thing would be good. Just everyone in the group. Could we just pass those out for the group in general? That would be a general. I actually have something like that Jackrabbit made up, like this. You know, I don't know if anyone saw these. This was from like the second week of the occupation or something, when we were still using the Google group. So just like a really small general one might be good. That anyone could just pass out, and then I don't know, different subgroups might have different.
It would be nice
needs.
if we had some kind of picture, icon, image, whatever, that's totally recognizable from here on forward.
This is some
People
already,
see it and it's recognized
okay.
as our group, you know. That would be wonderful. What can we do to, it's some kind of shock value is required to get it etched into the minds. But, I mean, initially, yeah, I was all for it. But, or waving the hand, Stefan, that's all. Sorry. Kay have 3 months of pent-up anger that she wants to share with us.
No, I just wanted to make a suggestion about the iconography. Since there's like a layering system here. There's the GA approved stuff, there's the this group approved stuff, and then there's the subgroup working stuff. Why don't you create icons for each of these, so when it's just a one subgroup, you just have that one icon. When you have two, you know, when it's a subgroup that has then gone and has been ratified by the bigger group, then you can have also, so it's like putting a stamp of approval, right? So each layer of this has a stamp of approval, and then when it gets ratified by the GA, then there's the final stamp of approval that it's part of the bigger group, and that can be a really nice iconography. It's really striking visually, and it's also very good.
It's also informative. Yeah.
It communicates a lot.
I like that. I like that.
Wait till she starts dropping F-bombs.
And then just, and then just as a, for this group, I don't know what will be the final decision, but one suggestion, just because I've been looking at so many like voting things where things get checked off, and this is political and electoral. A simple box with a check or something that just plays with that.
Yeah, that's what I was
Well, that's
using
kind of
on
in
the-
back. And it
Right.
would.
So something maybe
like a
taking
fist drawing the tag or
taking
something.
that into some, make it blossom a little more so that it's really becomes some kind of icon. You know.
What about, the fist is part of it. What about the fist with a
Yeah,
pen
drawing,
or something
check.
to that effect? No.
Because if you have the fist as the GA thing, then you don't necessarily need a fist for the political. I just
Or you could have a fist with one finger extended to incorporate Scott's idea. I'm just saying.
I really like the idea of visually representing some of the concepts.
Yeah.
I mean, money not equal to speech is relatively easy to understand, but for instance, combination and synthesis, one of the points here is not, it may not be the simplest thing to understand if you're not a language-based person. You know, if you really understand things more visually than linguistically, some of these points could perhaps benefit from visual explanation. It may not always lend itself, but that might be something. I like the idea because you're absolutely right. Some of these points are relatively arcane or very convoluted or intricate, and having means to kind of give you a quick flashcard. This is what we're talking about. You connect with the visual. I think could be very helpful as we look to communicate with wider audience.
Just one point. We have 15 minutes, so just so you know, keep that in mind.
How many minutes left do we have?
15 minutes,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying. I mean, we could use the rest of the meeting for this. There's only 2 quick announcements, so I have no problem.
Okay.
I don't think you giving it another 10, 12 minutes, right? So, and this is, I think, is important, being that we have no more agenda. That's not important.
So one thing I'd be curious to hear is if you wanted someone or either people in Occupy or whoever to just go away with like 2 or 3 messages.
Okay.
What are they? Like 3 concepts. Like they don't know anything about money and politics or campaign finance reform or anything. What are just like the 3 most simple things that you want them to understand and know?
Money out of politics. I mean, that's right. Did we say that? I mean, but that's an obvious, right?
It's a good.
That's what we're here, right? We want to separate. We want to divorce that. I mean, we want to.
Campaign
What's a more
finance
harsher
reform.
word than divorce? We want to sever that. We want to
Campaign finance reform?
beyond that. I personally don't want any politicians to handle money.
I think a
Make
good
it
image
illegal.
for at least where I'm coming from is again with the donkey and elephant. To make it simple, it's just like a donkey and elephant shitting on the Constitution. That would be a definitive image of.
you don't want to be a little more diplomatic.
Yeah, I was thinking. I mean,
People often tell me that I should tell them what I really think. So
thank you, Tim.
I would
Maybe
maybe with like a
politician
circle
say,
around it
like,
and across the room.
going to reach for money and have like a crack in that.
I see.
How's that visually?
That's cool.
Here's the image.
Yeah,
It is good, too.
somebody always stole that.
You should make
So you're the donkey elephant shitting on the Constitution. So what's the main idea there? Is it the against the 2-party system? Is it the
For me, that would be
the idea?
that would be against the 2 parties.
They
Maybe like
polluted
to making
and
sure that it's
destroyed.
against it. That like maybe a circle around it and a cross through it. Kind of.
Hold on a second. Go ahead.
Well, since he's so in love with that kid with the dollar sign, you could make, like the Che Guevara, the black and white image that's so famous. If somebody were to take
coddle it.
artistically this guy, like a generic face with
Just
the
the,
money, I
the
guess.
shadows, the color scheme of it.
just the black white.
Right.
Yeah,
probably coddle it.
that would be very memorable.
And there's also like coming up with images, but then also like what are they? Like these are like arresting images, but then what are they trying to say? Like what is that one or the Constitution one?
I just like that.
Riding an elephant with a donkey in tow. No, but I like.
Because otherwise it's animals and manure, and so I don't.
No, I know.
And that's,
I was
is that
asking
saying,
about that question.
Are we saying that we're putting out shit, or?
What about the donkey and the carrot? But instead of a carrot, a dollar bill. I don't know.
Don't forget about the fat cats and the pigs either.
Fat cats. I mean,
I like the simple thing, like money out of politics. Like if there's one message that needs to be spread, it's money out of politics, right? So,
Like someone putting a dollar bill into a ballot box,
Right.
maybe.
Along those lines.
That's a great
Is it
idea.
good?
With the line through it.
Yeah.
No more of
$100
this.
bill.
And then also, is there a way to say these positively too? Like, what is it that we envision? So,
Yeah, taking
like,
a dump,
We
I
want,
don't think is a
we want
positive.
politics without money, and we want voting without.
Right.
What's the positive of this?
Right.
Yeah, right. These are all focused on the problem.
This is all what we
Is
don't
there
want.
a solution
Are we
Sure.
that we
talking
can?
about content, or are we talking about how to present the content? Because I wasn't looking at the content when we started to talk about.
Oh, I think
No,
we're not
this-
on this document anymore. It's more,
Oh, okay.
yeah, what
No, we're
message do
looking
we
for a
want,
logo.
and then can we
Yeah,
draw
right,
that
okay.
message?
Yeah, I get that you're looking for a logo.
Sorry.
I've spoken a lot of times.
Okay. Well,
We have a
it's
progressive
kind of like
side.
the constitutional amendment that you brought last week. It's like, what is there like a short phrase that describes that? I guess it's money out of politics, but is there another positive way?
And
Like people.
I think I think money out of politics is if I had to, I mean, boil it down, and I think that to the extent that I've been able to gauge it, that is it's really one of the big issues.
Yeah.
I mean, people can resonate with that. So if we had a great way of visualizing
Yeah.
that, I think it would be really useful and powerful.
Like things like open government, openness, like an open door, right? Transparency would be like, I don't know, cleaning a window or something.
Right. Can you, like, the value of arguments, not the value of dollars in our politics? I mean, is that trying to say value?
You like rip the top off the Capitol building, and there's all like little stacks of money in there instead of people.
Okay, great. Well, I'll play around with these ideas, but like, please send any ideas.
Is there a way, if we suddenly wake up in the middle of the night with a brainstorm, that we can just sort of shoot it out to you?
Sure. I mean, would the best way to
No, we have phones
to
now.
use the
I thought it was all mic check and internet.
we can do mic check.
just start a thread?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just start a thread. And
Email address.
I don't think you two should sit
Yeah.
together anymore.
Like, I can give you my email address, but I'll also start a thread on the working group.
You'll get a ton of feedback.
I can't remember the last time I laughed as much. To report.
That's why they don't let me facilitate too much.
I
You're
think that's it.
okay
Yeah.
with where we're at?
Yeah, thanks.
Pat?
Okay.
It's all yours,
Thanks,
buddy.
Reno.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So back
Okay.
to hopefully not bore you terribly.
I got
Oh,
one.
good. Sorry.
Okay, I lost that one.
Do you have an extra copy? Or can she take this one?
I have a.
It's been updated as before. I'm giving you the changes in italics and to sort of walk you through what's changed. In the first paragraph, it remains much the same.
I'm sorry.
All of that natural versus unnatural persons and whatever, I managed to just sort of try and capture it with all other entities of any kind. So first we're talking about natural persons, which I think most of us would have an instinctive understanding of what that is. And if we move on into the second paragraph, incumbents shall be subject to these signature requirements in order to pursue re-election. This was a suggestion from Tim that everybody liked. And I think it works okay. Third paragraph, I added a little something I had thought more about the point we were trying to get at. We're trying to say we don't want influence peddling. We don't want people to be controlled by outside parties or financial interests. So we had already had creation or enforcement of laws or regulations, but we did not have or awarding of government contracts or employment, which is such a huge part of the present patronage system. So I've added that for your consideration. Then we have, at the end of this, accept employment or enter into any financial relationship, either individually or via a related party, with private entities whose fortunes were at all affected by their work in government for a period of 10 years after leaving government service. This was Tim's and a few other folks' suggestion that we didn't want to, I think Sam had this also. We're not trying to prevent you from ever making a living again, but we do want to discourage you from hopping into bed along these lines. I would be, personally, I could be comfortable with no limit.
Time limit, right.
But
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
We know
we're
the drill.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes left, but I'm also letting.
We're going to put back the chairs and stuff.
No. On Sunday, this place is going to be closed. So.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're closing it because they're cleaning it up, and then on Sunday they're just going to power wash the whole place down. All right. So they have the signs posted, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of hard to see that small little white sign.
Thanks so much.
So you guys just spread it out so
we'll
everyone would know. You guys won't show up Sunday and be like, this place is closed.
Thank you very much.
We would have otherwise.
Appreciate it. We would.
So just we're closing 10 minutes early just so that these guys could clean up the place. All right. Thank you guys.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, last paragraph. A little more of the cleaning up around entities. So individuals or entities found to be in violation. Going on down towards the bottom, any natural person or the managing members of any other entities involved in repeat violations. And then we added this subject to criminal prosecution and punishment as a way to indicate that we are definitely 100% against this, but maybe it's not treason. We're looking to use. So the document is evolving. Hopefully, as you guys are directing it. I would like to hear any additional feedback you have, and keep it going. I think it's getting better.
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, if you can let us have it, obviously take it with us and
Sure.
read it over on Sunday.
Naturally, yeah, of course.
Are we opening the stack or?
Yeah, go for it quickly, because I'd like to just address where we're going to meet on Sunday.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Stack.
What would stop me from buying a megaphone and yelling George Pataki for governor?
Mm-hmm.
Would that be illegal in this document?
That's it. I mean, I feel
No,
like
that's still free speech.
I feel like we don't want to. It's a constitutional amendment, so I'm trying to keep dollars, actual specific dollar amounts, or super specific statements out of there. Although it's very clear at the beginning that we're saying no private funds shall be spent. If you already own a megaphone,
I don't want to.
Well,
I don't
but-
own a
but-
megaphone. I'm going to buy a megaphone
Yeah.
and I'm going to put it on the top of my car.
I would say.
and
I
I'm
mean,
gonna yell George Pataki
this
for
is
governor.
here's kind of like where I'm coming from. I don't mind if each one of us as individuals go buy our own megaphone.
Right.
It's relatively equal then, and most people, well, perhaps not all, but most people could afford a megaphone. What I don't, but the point you're aiming at actually opens up very quickly when it's not just me buying my megaphone, but me buying megaphones for me and 5,000 of my closest friends,
Sure.
who happen to be in my political party. Or buying them 5,000 copies of a flyer each to distribute.
Yeah,
or,
right.
Thousands of signs for lawns. So it can get out of hand very quickly. So I do want to make it clear, if we can, that we're not just saying that we don't want the wealthy buying access to whatever it is, advertising in all of its forms. We agree as individuals to surrender that as well, in deference to a culture that is more informational than advertising, in deference to a culture that instead of having these endless ad campaigns that don't actually tell me whether a particular candidate is good or bad, they tell me that the opponent is terrible for 15 million reasons. But couldn't we just put them in the same room and let them debate and make sure that we see it? There are many, many elections that happen where the candidates choose not to debate, and I feel like that can't possibly be good for democracy. So, I'm looking for information in the system, and I feel like the way to do that, and also the way to enshrine equality in the system, is to get rid of the money, is to tamp down the money as much as possible.
There has to be a way then.
I want to hear it.
That
like what does it
as
sound
an individual,
like?
you cannot tamper on free speech.
I agree.
There's no way we can do that. But we can.
This is
hopefully.
I guess just to hop in real quick, I feel like this is about defining exactly what free speech is.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Speech in regards to election or anything in that sense has to be restricted, and I hate to use words like that, but it has to be restricted to an electoral board or an electoral commission where everybody is playing through that. It's like having a license to drive. If you don't have a license, you don't drive.
Right.
And it's the same thing. If you want to speak for a candidate or a party or whatever, you need some kind of approval, and that needs to be addressed, because you can't tell somebody that, even if it's a multi-millionaire or whatever, you can't say you can't print 1,000 flyers or 1,000,000 flyers, whatever, or put an ad on TV, but you can restrict it to, you can't do it if it's based on an electoral or an election or whatever. And that has to be addressed somehow without infringing upon people's individual rights.
Okay. Now, if I said no private funds shall be spent on any electoral campaign of any kind in any way, does that
might address it.
It's the second sentence.
No private funds should be spent.
I'd
So,
like to see it.
I just want to be clear on something. So people could still buy megaphones as long as they are purchased through the public funds.
We're not banning
As long as-
megaphones.
I honestly don't know, and I think it's a great conversation for us to have.
I mean, that's what the language.
Right. I mean, to me, the way I'm thinking of it,
just because
I don't want you buying a megaphone.
I don't either, but
I don't want you buying thousands of copies of your flyer. I don't want anything. It's like I want to bring the bus around to candidate A's house and pick that person up, pick up candidate B on the way, pick up candidate C, and drive them to the town hall. We own the bus, we own the gas, we own the town hall, we own the cameras in the town hall, we own the airwaves that we're going to broadcast the debate over. Like, the people own the mechanisms of communicating the information that's necessary for us to know who is the right candidate to represent us. And allowing other people, individuals, entities, corporations, foreign governments, to enter that process at a louder level than you and I are, because they have deeper pockets. I just feel like there's no. Here's the other thing. This constitutional amendment could be 20 pages long. It basically could be, legislation, campaign fine. It could be McCain-Feingold, right? It doesn't really make sense in the Constitution. The Constitution is for broad ideas, where we say, we love justice or we don't love justice.
come on, let's remedy the problem. I suggest that instead of saying no private funds, that you just forget about that and say only public funds allocated and apportioned for the level of government that is, has a contest, may be used to promote the candidacy of people, wanting to run for that office.
I think Sammy's going to have the same problem, but I'm in favor.
But
I don't mind changing it.
It should not be no private funds, because, if you start listing all of the things that you don't want, we'll be here forever.
Okay.
Why don't we list what we do want? Real simple.
All right.
They're closing it up.
What do you think about that?
We gotta go.
Well, what I was going to say is, if you've ever read The Prince, Machiavelli, or Thomas More's Utopia, you don't have to directly address the issue. Thomas More totally criticized the King of England in a fictional way. Yeah, well, still,
Just goes to show how effective it was.
Machiavelli did the same thing to the Pope. And
Can we continue this conversation somewhere else? I mean, there are other places open.
what are we doing Sunday?
We can step outside.
Want to grab a beer, Shoshana?
Not
What do you
much
say?
of a beer drinker, but I might have something else.
Is the meeting over, or are we going to continue?
I like your thinking. She's just kidding.
Is the meeting over, or are we going to continue the meeting?
Yes, it's over. Well, we can continue informally.
Woo!
Okay. So I can shut
It
up.
seems like this is the kind of thing that benefits.
So I can
from,
shut
like,
this off, right? We're done.
Say that
It
again.
seems like the kind of thing that benefits from hashing it out.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the speech.
Hey,
speech
how would you
provisions
guys
as well.
feel?
Yeah, like thinking like
How
I
is
think
The
this-
thing
yeah.
is, it's really difficult. It's like